Siddharth, we can start. Yes, sir.
Oh, good afternoon to one and all. It's pleasure to start this auspicious occasion by welcoming everybody to this webinar regarding the topic Parkinsonism hosted by Department of Medicine. I welcome our guest speaker, Dr. P. Vijay Shankar sir, who is a MD, DM Neurology, for accepting our invitation and joining with us amid his busy schedule. It's really an honor for having you as our guest speaker, sir. I'm sure that our guest speaker will enrich us by the webinar, and it would be surely be a thought-provoking one. On behalf of one and all, I welcome you, sir. And I also welcome Dean, Medical Superintendent, Deputy Medical Superintendent, and Vice Principal, who have consistently supported us in our effort to spread the light of true knowledge. I welcome you all. Everyone in my department has an equal hard work behind the organization of this webinar. So I am glad to express my greetings to our HOD, Dr. Ramaswamy, and my fellow colleagues of my department. I am extremely fortunate to welcome the HODs of other departments, junior residents, and CRRI teaching and non-teaching faculties of all departments.
Introduction of the speaker. See you.
Regarding introduction of speaker, Mr. Vijay Shankar did his UG in 1996 from Annamalai Medical College, MD from Pondicherry, our university, and DM. DM from Stanley Medical College and Hospital from 2011 to 2014, and did his fellowship in European Board of Neurology, Berlin, Germany in June 2015, and is well versed in Parkinsonism. Now we ask our HOD to say a few words.
Welcome you, sir. Welcome your academic achievements. So this is really very interesting topic, Parkinson's disease, along with movement disorders. And we welcome your, we are eagerly waiting your speech, sir. Thank you. Please proceed, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really glad to, it's my pleasure to give a lecture to you and your students. And I'm also a part of Vinayaka University because I have done my internal medicine training in Aurukode Video in 2010. And I'm really happy and I'm thankful for giving me the opportunity to our Honorable Chairman Satish Kumar sir, and also Professor Shanmugam sir, who is the Dean of our college, and with Professor Mohan sir and Professor Usha madam. And also I should thank Professor Ramasamy sir and my good friend Dr. Sendil Nathan. He is my very good friend actually. We were studied together and we had lots of good memories. And I also had one of my friend Dr. Ashok, who is the Deputy Medical Superintendent in WIMS. Anyhow, thanks for all for inviting me. Just I'll share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what is Parkinson's disease? We all know that Parkinson's disease is due to lack of dopamine. In this, we can see a normal person has a yellow color halo, which means he has enough dopamine in a normal person. But dopamine is not secreted enough. So you don't see the enough dopamine here. The halo is missing. Similarly, you can see this is a normal person's brain. You can see the substantia nigra. The substantia nigra, you can see a dark color pigmented area. This is secreting the dopamine. But in Parkinson's patient, you don't see the pigmented substantia nigra. The substantia nigra is lost. When the substantia nigra is lost, obviously the dopamine production is reduced. Step by step, it will be reduced. We all think that Parkinson's, like a couple of years, 10 years back, we all thought that the Parkinson's disease, which starts in the brain. But now we have enough evidence that the Parkinson's disease starts from the intestine, the gut, the normal microbiota, which is a common for normal person, which due to some unknown mechanism, some unknown triggers, which triggers the normal alpha-synuclein, the protein, which is travels from the stomach or the gut to the onset of Parkinson's disease and settles the Parkinson's disease nowadays. So, hello? My connection is poor, I think. Just I'll check it out. 1 minute. I'll check it out. Change it to something else. Sorry, just 1 minute. I think my connection is poor. Hello. So can you hear me now? Is it clear now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear now, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible clearly? Yeah, thank you. So now we know that Parkinson's disease starts from the gut and spreads to the brain after like almost 5 to 10 years prior to the onset of our clinical symptoms. There are many causes for the Parkinson's disease. I'm not going deep into that one. So this is a time frame. This is the onset of symptoms. Like first we see the tremors, rigidity, or bradykinesia. This is the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. This is the where our patients come to us, like they will come with tremors or stiffness or rigidity. But nowadays we recognize that at least 5 to 10 years prior to the onset of symptoms, now we know that the hyposmia or depression or the REM sleep behavioral disorder or constipation can occur at least 5 to 10 years before the onset of symptoms. Now we are working towards finding these patients very early. So our aim is nowadays, if we find a patient here at least 5 years prior to the onset, if we start treating the patient here, we can stop the progression, or we'll stop the disease progression, or we can stop the disease itself. The main idea is now, if instead of if the disease progresses like this, if we find this patient and treat yearly, whether we can change the disease progression like this. That's what we are thinking, but we need lots of research, but we are not yet reached there. So I need the students to go for more research and help us to find the biomarkers. So what are the clinical features of Parkinson's disease? One, expressionless face, small letters like micrographia, stooped posture, the bending forward, rigidity or slightly flexed hips and knees. They can have tremors like this. You can see the patient is having a lot of tremors like this, or they can have difficulty in walking. This is called as a freezing of gait. They can initiate the walk, or while turning, they'll have turning in block, like tuck, 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 turning in block, which is called as turn in block. Or they can have lots of dyskinesia. Dyskinesia means when when they have taken the tablet, when the tablet goes to peak, when the tablet reaches the peak, they can have lots of dyskinesias like this. They will have abnormal movements like this. You can see this is like a thing like movements. They can have lots of dyskinesias. When the disease progresses, so when the disease starts, usually you can take 1 tablet, 2 tablets, or 3 tablets. The tablet will work for 5 to 6 hours. But when the disease progresses, the tablet may not be effectively working. The duration will reduce. Like initially, when the tablet works for 6 hours, slowly, gradually, the tablet will work for 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. So when the tablet is working well, they'll be really working well. They can do all their activities well. But when the tablet is not working well, they'll become off. For example, I'll show you this video. See this tablet, this patient has undergone a DBS. I'll explain you. For example, he is not on medication. You can see he is having significant difficulty in walking. He is very slow. You can see the hand is really flexed here and here. And also he is dragging the right leg and he is pretty slow. He requires 2% support to walk. He cannot walk without support, and also he is very unstable. But in contrast, after taking the tablet, you can see he just can get up by himself. He can walk well by himself. There is no need for any support. Just he can walk. As you cannot say he has a Parkinson's disease at all. So this is the difference between off. Off is he cannot do his activities by himself. On is he'll with medications he can do all his activities normally. And the important thing is always during the disease progresses, the patient will develop the off and on. Always ask how long the tablet takes to work and how many hours the tablet is working. If the tablet is working for 5 hours, we need to adjust the tablet every 5 hours or 4 hours. The important thing what I see in every patient is the syndopa, the tablets levodopa is given after the food. So always the syndopa has to be given before food, or half an hour before food, or 1 hours after the food. Always that is very, very important to monitor the weaning off. So what are the other non-motor symptoms are? We always think about the motor symptoms, what we call it as a trap, tremors, rigidity, stiffness, or postural instability or falls. But we have the non-motor symptoms also. They have a lots of visual hallucinations. They can see, they will say that there is nobody will be there in front of them, but they can see there is some child is playing or some animals are in front of them. This is a hallucination. They frequently develop this type of hallucinations. Also, they can have a REM sleep behavioral disorder. What do you mean by REM sleep behaviors? They have a vivid dreams and they don't know what is the difference between their reality and dreams. So they will enact, they will try to they'll try to fight with the dreams. So they will have the REM sleep behavioral disorder. They'll try to act out the dreams. They'll try to kick out the dreams. So it is very, very common in all the patients of Parkinson's disease. And also they will have loss of smell, hypophonia, soft and slurring speech, and swallowing difficulties. This is very, very common when the disease progresses. And also they will have a urinary urgency, urinary frequency, and occasional incontinence. And constipation is pretty common in all the Parkinson's patient, and very, very almost 80 to 90% of the patient will develop constipation when the disease progresses. And they can also have impulse control disorder. Impulse control disorder means they go for lots of window shopping and they know that they have one watch or a pen or whatever it may be. They will, without thinking that it's not required, just buy another chocolate or another watch, pen, whatever things they'll suddenly impulsively they'll buy. They'll have binge eating. They'll have lots of tendency to have a gambling, pornography, or hypersexuality, especially when they are on the tablet called pramipexole. They can have sleep problem, sudden sleep while driving or whatever baby, or gambling and hypersexuality. So always check for this one because it's a troublesome, especially in young onset Parkinson's disease. So how will you diagnose? See, Parkinson's disease is a clinical diagnosis. No need for any test. But sometimes when they are on lots of tremors, we don't know whether it's a essential tremors or is it a drug-induced tremor, like somebody who is on antipsychotics, whether it's a drug-induced tremor, we don't know. At the time, MRI will be normal. We go to a DAT scan. DAT scan, this is a normal person. You can see a DAT scan shows a basal ganglia. You can see a comma-shaped basal ganglia here. But in Parkinson's disease, the underlying the comma, the tail will be lost. You can see a full stop like picture. Especially, you can see a difference between the right and left. If the comma is lost, we can say this is due to this is purely Parkinson's, not a normal patient or not an essential tremor. This is very, very useful nowadays. So I'm just, because of time, just going to the next atypical Parkinsonism or Parkinson's plus syndrome. The first type is progressive supranuclear palsy. This patient will have a typical surprise look. You can see the frowning and the surprise look. And also Parkinson's disease, they will have a flexed posture, but here they will have an extended posture. They will have, in Parkinson's disease, they will have more rigidity in the hands and legs. The truncal rigidity will be less, but more on the limbs, hands and legs. But here in progressive supranuclear palsy, the rigidity will be more in the neck and the trunk, axial rigidity. Because of the trunk will be extended, they will have more early back falls. The other important thing to diagnose is the eye movements. So you can see this patient. See, she can see the horizontal, looking to the right and left. It is easy for her. She can easily look between the right and left. The saccades are very good. But now we are asking her to look up and down. Now she couldn't look up at all. She's struggling. So this is one of the clear-cut feature of progressive supranuclear palsy. Earlier we asked her to look up and down voluntarily. Now we are trying to look for the supranuclear gaze palsy, whether it is a mechanical problem or is it a voluntary problem. Now we can, with the movement, we can easily move our eyes are moving up and down. So it means that the spontaneous looking up and down is problem. That is the earliest feature and pathognomic feature for the progressive supranuclear palsy. The other type, which is called as a primary progressive freezing of gait. Here, these patients sometimes can present with eye movements can be a lost one. First one will be the walking problem. You can see her eye movements are pretty normal. She can fastly look up and down on the sides. There is no tremors. The important thing is no tremors. Now she can easily move her legs up and down, side to side very well. But when you ask her to walk, she cannot even take a single step. She has got a significant freezing of gait. Freezing of gait means her legs are glued to the ground. She is having difficulty in initiating the walking, what we call it as a gait initiation failure. She has significance. Look at the right leg. She couldn't keep the steps at all. She could not initiate the gait at all. She struggles even for a single step. So this is called as one of the feature of primary progressive freezing of gait. How will you diagnose it? So if you do the MRI for Parkinson's disease, the MRI is normal. For progressive supranuclear palsy, can you see this one? This is the midbrain. Can you see this is called as a hummingbird sign? You can see the atrophy of the midbrain. The top part will be the atrophy and also the belly of the abdomen will also get reduced. So this is called of the hummingbird sign. Or also you can see the axial cut of the brain. You can see there is the Mickey Mouse sign, that like a face of the Mickey Mouse. You can see there is the sides will be reduced and also the atrophy of the top part of his, which is called as a Mickey Mouse sign. If these two signs are there, it is clear-cut progressive supranuclear palsy. We do some other tests nowadays like MRPA index. Those are more specific to diagnose the progressive supranuclear palsy. This is another type which is called as a multiple system atrophy. Here also you can see this gentleman. He has eye movements are pretty normal, like progressive supranuclear palsy. His vertical eye movements are restricted in progressive supranuclear palsy. In this condition, his eye movements are pretty normal and there is no tremors. See, the other important point is in all the atypical Parkinsonism, the tremors will be less, no tremors and less response to levodopa. It's a diagnostic feature. No response or slight response to levodopa. You can see there is no tremors and he is slow in hand movements and leg movements. Look at the right leg, he's dragging. So this is called as a dystonia of the leg, which is more commonly we see in the Parkinson's disease. Here, he came with one important complaint. He has slowness in activity, stiffness in legs, and slight difficulty in walking. And he gave us an important point is he has frequently going to the washroom. Every 1 or 2 hours is going to the washroom, or sometimes if it is delayed, sometimes he could not hold the urine, he will pass some urine in the pants itself, some dribbling of urine. When I check the BP, his BP is like this, for example, I have given it. His BP is 170 when he is lying down, like on lying down the bed. On standing, his BP is 140. The difference is more than 30 millimeter of mercury. For normal postural hypotension, the BP fall should be 20 millimeters of mercury. But here, to diagnose a multiple system atrophy, the fall in BP should be more than 30 millimeters. And also they should have a urgency of urine, frequency of urine, or urinary incontinence. In contrast to progressive supranuclear palsy, progressive supranuclear palsy had the extended neck, but in multisystem atrophy, they will have a forward flexion of the neck. They will have the front bend of the neck will be falling down. So they will have the typical difference between these two categories. And if you look at the MRI will show you a hot cross band. Hot cross band is which is available in abroad. This type of plus will be there in the band on top. So you can see in the midbrain, you can see a midbrain like a corticospinal tract will be like plus like symbol. You can see, can you see here? This plus like symbol will be seen in the multisystem atrophy. This is a pathognomic sign of multiple system atrophy. We can also see some other signs, but this is the more commonly or more trusted sign which we see in multiple system atrophy. The next syndrome is the other subset type of Parkinsonism is corticobasal syndrome. Yeah, this is one of my patient. When I was in Ireland, I saw this patient. See, she can have some slight tremors. The right side is good, but you can see there is difficulty in doing the movements in the left side. Very, very slow. And also her hands are a little bit of stiff like this, which is called as a dystonia. So now we are asking her to salute. She is asking to do the bye-bye. She is able to do it well in the right side. So she can do the combing very well. She's I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the interruption. There was some connectivity problem for me. Yeah. So on the other hand, she couldn't do anything on the left side, which is called as a apraxia. Apraxia means it is difficult to do the known activities, which she couldn't do it. And also the right leg, she is able to tap. Left leg, she couldn't do it. You can see this one. When you prick the hand with a pin, she'll have a stimulus sensitive myoclonus. So dystonia, stimulus sensitive myoclonus. The important thing is asymmetric Parkinsonism. Asymmetry. Right side was fine. Left side was asymmetricity. So the asymmetric Parkinsonism with dystonia, stimulus sensitive myoclonus with the alien hand. Alien hand means some abnormal grasping, grabbing, all these things, which is suggestive of corticobasal syndrome. Fortunately, this is a very rare case. This is a multisystem atrophy presented like a corticobasal syndrome, which we have reported here in a journal. So how will you diagnose? See, you can see the MRI. So the MRI shows this side that the atrophy is more, but when you compare to the opposite side, this side the atrophy is less. Even here, the atrophy is more. There is large gap in the brain, but here the gap is less. So asymmetrically, the atrophy. If you look at the autopsy here, it is not much atrophy, but here you can see the atrophy of the brain. So the asymmetric atrophy, if any patient who Parkinson's patient presents asymmetrically, only two diseases you should suspect. One is Parkinson's. If there is good response to levodopa and tremors, Parkinson's disease. Asymmetricity, less response to levodopa, no tremors, corticobasal syndrome could be the cause. The last subtype is dementia. The patient will have typical Parkinson's syndrome with visual hallucination. They will see people, they will see animals, everything will be there. This is visual. Yearly dementia within 1 year. If your patient, usually dementia occurs after 5 years or 7 years of Parkinson's disease. But anybody who develops dementia earlier, this is due to dementia of Lewy bodies. So how will you treat Parkinson's disease? But like 10 years back, we know that there was one controversy was that if you treat the Parkinson's disease very early with levodopa, they will have lots of dyskinesia. Dyskinesia means the abnormal movements. So we try to give like pramipexole or Selegiline, other type of medications to keep the levodopa later on. But this study was done in Europe and Italy and Ghana. Because of the advanced treatment available, lots of neurologists, Parkinson's disease was diagnosed earlier, within 3 years in Italy, and they started the levodopa within 3.5 years. But they developed the fluctuations around 5 years and developed dyskinesias around 6 years. But in Ghana, there's lack of doctors, lack of medical facility. They diagnosed the Parkinson's disease after 5 years. They start the treatment at 6 years with levodopa, but they also developed the dyskinesias at 7 years. So it means that levodopa is not the reason for the dyskinesias. The disease process is the causes for the dyskinesia. So don't hesitate to start the levodopa earlier. So the next question arises: should it start the treatment with the levodopa or disease sparing it, like a dopamine agonist or a MAO inhibitors, all these things? If you look at this picture, here they started the levodopa earlier, and at some point of time, within like 2 years, they developed the more levodopa is required. Around 3 or 4 years, they develop a fluctuation. So sometimes levodopa works for 3 hours, 4 hours, and also they develop lots of dyskinesias. On the other hand, if you start with a pramipexole or Selegiline without levodopa, like just sparing levodopa, but they don't have the fluctuations, they develop the fluctuations later on. But at the end of 5 to 6 years, you can see those patients who treated with levodopa yearly has low disability. Here, those who started not treated with levodopa has more disability. So it means levodopa is the best drug still we have even after 50 years, and it has to be started earlier. So we have other like dopamine agonists like pramipexole, ropinirole, MAO inhibitors, Selegiline, rasagiline, COMT inhibitors, entacapone, all are benzodiazepines we have. But levodopa is still the best. If you treat all these medications are increasing the potency of the levodopa, at the same time increasing the duration of the availability of levodopa. So all these are all add-on medications, not the first line medication, second line. After 5 or 7 years, this is one of my patient. Like after 7 years of levodopa, he has taken the levodopa, but he always feels that the levodopa is not working well. They subjected to the scopy whether he has any H. pylori or some other problems in the intestine. After 2 hours after taking the levodopa, his syndopa is still there in the gut. It means that the gut mobility is restricted. So this is the problem we encounter in advanced Parkinson's disease. At the time, the oral tablet, whatever we give, it will not work. So we require a advanced non-oral therapies. What we have. So when do we refer to the advanced therapies? When somebody who is taking 5 times of levodopa and they have 2 hours of tablets not working, 1 hour of dyskinesias, abnormal movements, send them to the deep brain stimulation. What is deep brain stimulation? So this is the basal ganglia where our Parkinson's disease starts. So here we give like a cardiac pacemaker. We'll put 2 electrodes in the brain and connect a battery here and connect the wires inside the skin. Nothing will be visible outside. This battery will work 24/7, and inside the brain, it improves the Parkinson's symptom extraordinarily. This is like a pacemaker for the brain, what we call. So this is, we are going to place a pretty small. You can see how small, this is my finger. very, very small electrodes, the 4 contacts in the brain, and we will keep it a small battery in the chest here. So, sorry, and we'll place the one electrode in this side, or depending upon the symptoms, another electrode here in this way in the brain. This is one of my patient who underwent DBS. You can see there is lots of tremors in his hands, significant tremors in the right side. So he has already underwent a DBS. He has resting tremor, lot of resting tremor, no postural tremors. So I am switching on the DBS now. So can you see any tremors? No tremors at all. There is a phenomenal response to his tremors. Absolutely no tremors. We have lots of patients who has significant tremors or slowness will improve dramatically with the deep brain stimulation. So this is one another patient. He has a Parkinson's disease with dystonia who underwent DBS. You can see him, he has significant difficulty in walking. He requires a support to walk. You can see he is dragging his right leg. Also, he has a dystonia in the right leg. His quality of life is very, very declined because of his Parkinson's disease. Now, after the surgery, within 1 week, you can see he is able to walk without any support on the right side. He can walk without any support, and he can also run without support. Now you can see he is running. See, you can run now. There was a significant difference you can see. See, earlier, 5 years back or 10 years back, we see that Parkinson's disease is a debilitating disease. Now Parkinson's is not a debilitating disease. We have enough treatment for this one. And nowadays we have apomorphine pump. Those pen, if somebody has sudden off period, which the tablet is not working, like an insulin pen, just give a shot. Within 10 minutes, the symptoms will become normal and they will improve a lot. This is one of the patient. You can see this man. Oops, I'm sorry. So you can see now he has, without medication, he is very off. He cannot move, he couldn't talk, and he has significant difficulty without the medications. He couldn't talk at all. He cannot move his hands. But after giving the apomorphine, here, he's much better. He's very, very advanced Parkinson's disease. He's much better. Within 4 milligram of levodopa, within 10 minutes, he's able to walk very well. He can move his hands very well. So this is going to be one of the biggest improvement with this medication. And we can use the apomorphine as a pump like this. We can just keep the apomorphine pump here, and then we can continue 24/7. We can give treatment for the Parkinson's patient. This is one of my patient. Sorry. He's a young onset Parkinson's disease patient who cannot move without medication. The medications are not at all sufficient for him. He has significant difficulty in walking. And he is also very, very unstable. Sometimes he tends to fall also. But after starting the apomorphine, you can see much difference. He can get up. See, this is the pump which is kept in the back. He can walk immediately. He can just get up, and these are all very advanced Parkinson's disease. So he can walk without any support. You can see the tiptoe walking here. Significantly, they can improve a lot. And nowadays we have the intestinal levodopa. We can put the intestinal levodopa instead of taking the tablet. We can give the intestinal levodopa 24/7. This is not available in India, but it is also very, very useful for our patients. So the take-home message is, if you are suspecting Parkinson's disease or Parkinsonism, for young like a CRIs or doctors, just I will say this: look for whether it's asymmetric or is it bilateral symmetric. If the patient has tremors, bradykinesia, rigidity, falls and freezing, most likely to be a Parkinson's disease. Similarly, asymmetric disease, bradykinesia, rigidity, like Parkinsonian features with stimulus sensitive myoclonus, dystonia, alien hand syndrome. The important thing is no response to medication. In that case, it is most likely to be a corticobasal syndrome. On the other hand, if somebody who has bilateral symmetric disease, vertical eye movement restriction, axial or neck rigidity, the surprised look, early falls within first year, is most likely to be a progressive supranuclear palsy. Similarly, Parkinsonism, no drug response. Somebody has postural hypotension more than 30 millimeter of mercury, urinary urgency and frequency, most likely to be a multisystem atrophy. Look for the hot cross bun sign. Here you can look for the hummingbird sign. If somebody has a Parkinsonism, no drug response, fluctuations like one day will be good, one day will be bad, yearly dementia with visual hallucinations, most likely to be a Lewy body dementia. And I should thank my teachers. And without the teachers, I'm not here in front of you. They are the pillars for my all my education and everything. Thank you, sir. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. It's one of the eye opener of the movement disorders. They explained the various presentation of Parkinson's disease and Parkinson-like syndrome associated with the differential diagnosis and how to come to a conclusion, clinical conclusion for Parkinson's disease, and what are the latest management of including the brain stimulation therapy and all is a very good informative lecture for the undergraduate as well as the budding physicians. Thank you very much, sir. Now, vote of thanks, Dr. Devasen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here we are at the end of this lovely gathering this afternoon. I take an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the Department of General Medicine, Annapurna Medical College. First and foremost, I express my sincere gratitude to our guest speaker, Dr. P. Vijayashankar sir, MD DM Neurology, for sharing his knowledge on the topic Parkinsonism and enlightening us. It was indeed very informative for all of us, sir. Thank you. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our chairman, Mr. Jayesh Satish Kumar, for extending his support and guidance to conduct this webinar. My hearty thanks to Professor Shanmugam, Dean sir, Professor Dr. N. Mohan, MS sir, Professor Dr. B. Usha, the Vice Principal, Professor Dr. Prasanna Babu, DMS, who have stood by us, guide us, and lead us and motivate us as always. Most importantly, I would like to thank my team, Department of General Medicine, guided by our able head of the department, Dr. Ram. Interest. I also thank the students and the IT help for all the support. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, is it audible for you, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, my connection is poor. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thanks for Dr. Sindhila. And thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.